my name is Samantha and welcome to my sewing YouTube channel, Sewing in Switzerland. Today is a little different. We're going to purchase and print and assemble a PDF sewing pattern as requested. So we're going to add our PDF to cart. I've got the Salvi sundress from Sew House 7 there, so I've added the PDF pattern. We're going to continue to check out, make sure that you only have one in your basket because it's PDF, so you only need one and no more. And then continue to check out where we've got our billing address and all that lovely information there. So I've gone ahead and purchased the pattern that we're going to be needing. So you want to press access pattern files. And then I know this looks really overwhelming, but we only need 2 of these downloads here. So we're going to need the instructions PDF and the print at home A4 PDF. All the others are just white noise, okay? So we want to save them from the website now. I'm going to right click and save as, and you're just going to save that in a folder. So it's only the A4 print at home instructions and the instruction booklet that we're going to need. So you're going to need Adobe Reader. So make sure you've downloaded that. It's a free Adobe software so that you can open these documents, and that's the best way to print with them. So the rest are just copy shop and projector files, which we're not going to need at all. So I've gone ahead and saved the documents there, so we're just going to open them up. So I'm starting with the instructions and we're going to print that. So I'm just going to zoom out so you can see it all. Lovely. Then we're going to go File, Print, and we're going to select Print Both Sides just because it's good for the environment. And actual size is on the fit on the scale there, and we're going to hit Print, and away we go. Now we're going to print the actual pattern itself. So we're going to open up that second document. I'm just going to zoom out so you can see what we're doing here. So this is the first page of instructions. So as you can see, we want it to 100% not fit to page. You don't want to mess with the margins, don't touch them. So we're just going to go File, Print, and then we are going to select not print on both sides of paper. We want it on single sides. And then we're going to go Custom Scale. And that's 100%, okay? 100% custom scale, and then hit print, and away we go. Okay, my friends, so we're back in the sewing room now, and I've got the printed Sew House 7 Salvi sundress instructions printed, and I've also printed the print at home A4 PDF pattern pieces here. So these are the things that we're going to need next now, and these are to assemble the pattern. So you're going to need a tape measure just to check that your measurements that you're printing has come out correctly, and I'll show you that in a sec. We're going to need some paper scissors. I've got left-handed ones here, and some sellotape. You can use like Scotch tape or normal sellotape or branded sellotape, it doesn't really matter. We're just sticking paper bits together, so yeah, you don't need to go all out for your sellotape. So in some patterns, the instructions will include the assembly guide for the pattern. However, in Sew House 7, they don't typically include that in the instructions. I'll just double check. No. Okay, so we're going to put our instructions for the time being to one side. We are not going to need them anymore. So next we've got the pattern pieces here, and I believe I read 53 pages. 53 pages, so they are quite chunky to print out, and this will take some time to assemble it, but to be honest, I actually much prefer it to paper patterns. But again, that's, you know, personal preference, and it's, everyone is different. It's really divided in the sewing community. So let's take a look. So hopefully you have followed the printing instructions that I just laid out, and that your printer was set to 100%. Not fit to page, don't touch the margins, just don't even go near them. And then you want to print this page first, so the very first page, so just one page just to double check. And then I'm going to grab the tape measure, and we've got, I'll just pull it up to the camera, we've got this lovely test square here. So you just want to get your tape measure or a ruler or anything really, and you just want to make sure that that it matches up with your measurements. So this box is 2 inches by 2 inches, so 2 inch by 2 inches, perfect. Lovely jubbly. So we can cast this one aside now, and then underneath, this is what I was looking for in the sewing instructions. Usually they actually are, this page, this kind of assembly guide page, is included in the instruction booklet. However, Sew House 7 do put it in their pack with the actual pattern pieces. So you can see here, what this does is this is our template on how to assemble the pieces. So when you're putting them together, you're going to just want to check that your numbers line up on this grid as we're sticking them together. So I'll just put it right close. So they are actually numbered. So if you look really, really closely, you can see which one is which. But you get these really big numbers in the middle. And you can see that on the next page there. And that basically just allows you to kind of keep yourself true with what you're doing. So how do we stick it together, my friends? Well, so now this changes, especially if you're using indie patterns. This changes depending on the company that you're using. The assembly instructions will be different. So with Sew House 7, I've made a few of their patterns, so kind of know what I'm doing with it. With Sew House 7, these two, you can see where it says 1A there. We're going to snip off down that line there, that margin there. My husband has just come home from the shops, and the dogs think obviously he's been shopping for them, so they have all flown down the stairs, if you can hear that. So we're going to trim off, and we want these stars basically to align to make a perfect star. So 1A will match up with 1A. So I'm just going to trim that and show you. So I'm going to move the rest of the pack out of the way. And we're going to lay down our first piece. Our very first piece of paper we're not going to touch. We don't need to do anything with that. And then I'm very crudely going to snip my way along. You'll have to forgive me. I am left-handed. You know I've told you this so many times. I actually think these are right-handed scissors, not left-handed. I don't know. Anyway, I'm trimming up that side of the piece of paper. And you will get a lot of paper for the recycling when you're through with this. So you can see I've got this one laid out, and I'm just going to lay this star so that it lines up together nicely. So again, you want to check the bottom of the paper lines up. You don't want to overlap it. Some of them will require you to overlap it. I think the big four actually tend to do that more often than not. And you'll actually overlap the pieces, but not with Sew House 7. And again, you just have to read the assembly instructions for each one, which is a bit of a pain, but you know, so I'm just going to make sure that this lines up. I haven't got my glasses on, so we got to get really close, I'm afraid. There we go. You do have to be quite precise, purely based on the fact that by the time you get much further down, it can go a bit AWOL. I'm just going to stick that there. There we go. So we're going to do the same again. We're going to trim this next piece. You can see we've got 3, 4, and then the next one is 1B, 5 up there, 1B. So we're going to cut this margin, this extra piece of paper here. That's the bit that you're going to snip off. So you're just going to follow that line nice and straight up there. Unless, you know, you're left-handed or you're cutting out atrocious like mine. And that's fine, because we still get the job done. So, oops, don't want to knock over the camera while I'm at it. So I'm just going to overlay this next one here. So you can see it does start to get a little bit overwhelming. because you then want to just be double checking that everything is lining up here with your actual pattern pieces. So, ta-da. I want to come in a little bit there. See, it is super fiddly. And I do actually, funnily enough, I do have friends who are really into pattern piecing, like the paper patterns together. So we're just going to run a bit more tape down there. You want to make sure that all your pieces are stuck together. So we're going to do the next one again together. We're going to work along this first row, and then I'll show you how the second row looks. So I'm just going to check the guide, the assembly guide that we've got. And let's take a look. So there's 9 pieces, or we want to get to number 9 on that first row. It starts at 3, so you know it's not always easy to follow. So we want to go all the way across to 9. So we're up to 6 now. Yeah. So I'm just going to cut this one again. So you're just going up that margin, pretty much, to be perfectly honest, along that margin. So you can see I'm a little bit off. And then we're going to line it up and stick it to that next star there. So yeah, I do have friends in the sewing community that find this whole task super relaxing. Really relaxing, really enjoyable. You put a Netflix show on or a Disney Plus show on and make a nice coffee and away you go. And have a super relaxing time. I usually get sidetracked in the middle of it because I get backache, or the dogs get bored, or I get bored. And so it usually takes me about 3 times longer to actually get it done. And if you don't line it up particularly great, you will further down end up with this kind of pieces are skewed. So then it won't be the correct shape. And you know what? It happens. So don't beat yourself up if your sticking is not the best, because same. So we're just going to go up the margin for 7. I'm just going to work across this top one and then make a start on the second one so you can see the future rows and how we're going to do that basically. I'm just going to move that slightly off the camera so we can see what we're doing. So you do want to keep it as straight as you can. Obviously I'm trying to fit it in the camera, so we've gone a bit AWOL. A bit wonky, and that's fine. So again, you want to line it up. And there are different tricks that you can do to make these line up. Some people fold down the very corners and only stick the corners, and they find that lines up much easier. So again, it's just playing around and working out what works for you, but this is the kind of general gist of the assembly. You want those stars in the case of Sew House 7 to line up. So we're on to page 8 now. Talking of Netflix and Disney Plus shows, what is everybody watching? What are you all into at the moment? Are there any good shows? I'm kind of between shows at the moment. I do like a good crime drama or a good thriller. So if anybody has any recommendations, I would be very grateful. Okay, I'm just going to stick a bit more tape because I'm not sure if that will need it there. Oh, and also the other thing, I lose the end of the tape. at least 20 times. So, you know, if that's also you, I recommend a tape dispenser. Okay, so the last piece of the top row and also this assembly situation, it kind of all comes together, those 53 pages. So not only will it take you a little bit of time to put that together, but also it requires quite a big surface. So I do tend to put it together on the floor. So I do recommend that above a table. And if you do use the table, then you might have to kind of cut your pieces out as you go along, because of that extra space required. The Soho House 7 Salvia was Soho House 7 company in general, not just this pattern, is actually really good, because in the pattern files, I mean, we aren't doing that today, but I don't know if you noticed, when we were filming the computer, you could actually see the projector files as well. So if you have a projector or you want to get into projector sewing, Soho House 7 includes that as standard when you purchase a pattern. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so we are now on to row 2. I'm just going to make sure it's all lying nice and flat. So row 2, you can see here we've got our star at the bottom. So 2A, I'm just going to stick another little bit of tape there because it's moving around a lot. Lovely. So what we do now is, because we're also having to stick to the top as well as the sides, so you're going to want to cut off that top line here, this margin up here. So like we've been doing with the side pieces. I've lost my scissors. Oh goodness, I've lost the scissors. Does anybody else chaotically sew? It can't just be me. So I'm just going to cut along this top line here. Lovely. And then we're just going to line up that bottom to a star with this to a star at the top. So I might just have to move the camera slightly back. Whoops. There we go. And again, it's never going to be completely perfect, so you just want to line it up as best you can. I mean, we could all sit here for hours and hours trimming it right down and, you know, making it as even and as perfect as can be, but it takes so long to do. You just want to aim for not bad rather than perfect here. A little bit on the end there. Okay, so I'll just show you this next piece and then we'll go offline and we'll stick the rest together ourselves. So number 10, so we're up to 11 on the next one. So for this one, this is where it gets a bit more tedious, I'm afraid. Just move the camera along. So this is 11. So now we need to do the top margin that we've got to cut along there, so 2B. And also the left hand margin along here. So now we're chopping up 2 margin pieces. So I'm just going to go up here and then along here. And I'm afraid to say you might get a couple of paper cuts with this. Okay, so just get the paper out the way. There we go. So you just want to line up those stars again, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky because you're lining up both sides basically. So that's looking as good as I'm going to get it. Oh, the dogs have returned. There we go. So we're going to carry on with that. We're going to work our way across until we've done all 53 or whatever it was sheets. Yep, 53. So I'll see you at the end. Okay, my friends, it has been 37,000 years and the pieces are now stuck together. I'm actually holding the phone, so excuse any wobbling, it might pick up. So I've stuck them all together, and now what you want to do is imagine that you cannot see the grayed out numbers written on, and just follow the blocked lines. So when you're putting it together, you'll notice that you're even subconsciously following along with the actual pattern pieces. So on the top, very top right there, number 8 and number 9, that's where the facing begins, and underneath it we've got the pocket piece. So you'll be able to follow along and identify which pattern piece is which. I know looking at this now on the camera looks super overwhelming. It looks like none of it makes sense. I can promise you it does. If you just imagine you can't see the grayed out numbers. And again, you'll be following it as you're sticking it together. So it's really self-explanatory. So I just want to show you number 53, because as I previously said, the paper pieces, as you're sticking them together, they do sometimes go askew, and it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. So I just want to highlight at the very bottom right there near the dog. The other dog is underneath the paper, so I'll show you her as well. So this piece down here, number 53, you can see I've got a bit of a gap. I've actually had to stick a piece of paper underneath it, and you can see it just ever so slightly doesn't line up here. This is just the ruffle piece. This is just the ruffle piece. So with all ruffle pieces, I mean, they're all the same, aren't they? Essentially, they're just giant rectangles. So you don't want to worry about that. If that is, you know, the gap that you've got between it, or you've got a little gap here, I've just filled in with a bit of paper, don't worry about it. Do not worry, it's fine. It's not gonna affect the pattern itself. Don't think, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to take it all apart and re-stick it all together. It's absolutely fine. So I will leave you all with just a little flash of the driplets and wish you all a wonderful day. And I hope that this has been super informative for you. If it has, if you've enjoyed this kind of skill sharing, I would really appreciate your feedback. And as always, me and the pugs would very much like it if you would like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks so much. Bye.